The exercise files for today's course are located in the video description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Joe Patty. I'm going to be facilitating this course for you today. And today we're talking about Microsoft Project 365. This is an introduction level course. And you might be wondering, well, what exactly is Microsoft Project? It's actually a project management software tool used by project managers. It helps with many things. One of the things it helps with is, first off, project planning. It allows you to plan projects by defining tasks, durations, dependencies, assigning resources, and generating schedules. It also helps with resource management, where you can create a resource sheet for tracking resources like people or equipment or materials that are needed to carry out a project task. It's also great for tracking progress. So as your team works on a project, they can update actual task start and finish dates, or even percentage of work completed, or remaining duration of the project. And you can also pull out reports and analysis. So you can generate a range of different reports that Microsoft has given you, so you can view project status, resource utilization, or even costs. So once again, Microsoft Project is a great project management software to plan, organize, track, and analyze your projects efficiently.
Looking to support our channel and get a great deal? Become a member today to unlock ad-free videos. That's right, your favorite courses without a single ad. Interested in a specific video? Purchase one of our ad-free courses individually. Looking for even more? Gain access to exams, certificates, and exclusive content at LearnitAnytime.com. More information can be found in the video description below.
Before we get into the tool of project management, we need to first talk about the 5 phases of project management. The first phase is known as the initiation phase, where we'll define the scope of the project, objectives, and also stakeholders. We then get into the planning phase, where we'll create a detailed plan for project activities, resources, budget, schedules, and any risks associated with the project. We then have the execution phase, where we'll implement the project plan and deliver the project deliverables. And then the monitoring phase, where we'll track the project progress, performance, quality, and issues, and make adjustments as needed. The last phase is known as the closing phase, where we'll finalize the project, close the contracts, and evaluate the project outcomes and any lessons that were learned during this project process. Understanding this phase is important because where most of the project tool will take place is known as the planning phase. What we're going to talk about next is the 5 easy steps to actually create a project plan using this tool. But understand that when we're using this tool, it's mostly used in the planning phase and it helps us to create a plan, but it doesn't help with the scope of the project. It does help a little bit with execution phase because it helps us to track progress of a plan, but it can't help you define the scope or figure out if you've met that scope. So really, most of what you're doing in this project management tool is the planning phase, a little bit of execution phase, and a little bit of the monitoring phase. In order for us to use project correctly, there's 5 easy steps to create a project plan. The first one is for us to enter in the project information, things like the start or end date, and even the project name. After that, we can start to enter in our task names. We'll then want to enter in durations, whether they're estimates of how long it'll take to do the task, or if you want to put more accurate durations, you're more than welcome to. We'll also be getting into creating outline tasks, and this allows for us to create work breakdown structures. The last thing we'll have to do after we create our tasks, enter in our durations, and outline them is to create relationships by linking our tasks. Once we do these 5 steps, we'll then have a functional project plan. So I want everyone to take a moment, open up Project now, and we're going to take a look at the project interface. When you first open up Project 365, it's going to bring you here to what's known as the startup screen. Startup screen is great because we have access to create a blank project or even use any of these templates that Microsoft created for us. Included in these templates, we have Excel workbook, which will allow us to take Excel data and bring it into project, or even SharePoint lists, where we can take SharePoint list data or SharePoint tasks and bring it into project. You'll also see our most recent projects we've been working on here. And we're going to keep things simple. We're just going to simply use the blank project for today. So feel free to click on blank project, and it's going to bring you to the main interface. Now, this main interface may look familiar because, well, it is a Microsoft application. So right away, we do have our ribbon. And on top of our ribbon, we have our tabs. And inside of our tabs, we have our command groups and then our commands. Typically through the training, that's how I will direct you. I'll say, hey, we're going to head over to the project tab. We're going to click on something, and I'll always annotate so you can follow along with me. One of the first things I like to do when I first enter into a project file is get rid of the timeline. We'll talk about timeline maybe a little later or even tomorrow, but if I don't want the timeline right now, you could go to the View tab, and in the View tab, you can go over here to the Split View command group and deselect the check mark for timeline. That way we get more of our Gantt and our actual spreadsheet here. At this moment, you'll see that we do have a Gantt chart because this is one of the default views the project gives us. Once we start adding information into our spreadsheet over here, it will then start to create a Gantt chart for us, which is pretty awesome. Just like Excel, if you've used Excel or Google Sheets or Smartsheet, we have a spreadsheet here. And you can just simply click in. We already have predefined columns like task name, duration, start and finish, predecessors, and even task mode. And we'll talk about what these columns do and what they're used for. Down at the bottom here, you'll see we have different ways to switch the interface. Whether we want to switch to task usage, or maybe we want to switch over to a resource sheet, we can quickly do that by just clicking. And you'll see it starts to switch the interface around. These are just different views, and we're going to talk about these views a little later in the training. But right now, we're going to stay on the Gantt chart view. This is our main view. Also in the bottom right-hand corner, we have a way to zoom in and out. Whether you want to zoom in and out of the Gantt chart, or if you want to come over here and just zoom in, you're more than welcome to by using the control key and the mouse wheel. So either way is fine. You can just use the simple zoom, or you can click and drag with your mouse wheel. Now, if you are seeing some sort of line here, and you're like, well, Joe, I don't have any data right now, but I do see a line. That's because this is today's date. So it's always going to showcase the most recent current date that's on your computer. What we're going to do next is create our project plan. And in order to do this, we need to start with defining the project. So the first thing that I want to do here is go over to the project tab. And inside of the project tab, under the properties command group, we're going to click on project information. Now, once we click on project information, we can then either start this project from a certain start date or a finish date. And you can choose which one by clicking schedule from, and then choosing if you want to start this from a start date, or if you want to start it from a finish date and work backwards. Now, a lot of people ask me, why would you want to start it from a finish date? Well, it really depends. If somebody says, hey, Joe, we're going to start this project in June. Well, then I now know that I have a start date in June. Otherwise, if somebody said, we need this project completed by June, well, then I know that it has to have a finish date of June, and I would work backwards. We're going to keep it very simple today. So you could click the drop down and choose whether you want to be on a finish date or a start date. And we're going to choose start date because that's going to be the easiest for us to sort of work in sequential order. So let's say that we want to start this in June. We'll use that as an example. Let's say I don't know, June 1st. So we're starting this on June 1st, but you'll notice that that's going to be a Saturday. It's important to note that when we're dealing with project, they don't include Saturdays and Sundays. They only include Monday through Friday unless you customize it and change it in the settings. So instead of saying Saturday, let's do the next business day, which is Monday the 3rd. Once I put that in here, I can now click OK. And I've now defined my project. Now you will notice that our Gantt chart just jumps. It jumps to June 3rd. So you'll see a little dotted line, and this dotted line represents the start date of our project. At this point, I may want to save my project and give it a name, because right now it's just simply called Project 1. And let's say that this project is going to be a product launch. So I'm going to go over and click the little save icon, or little floppy disk, or you can use Control S. And I'm just going to save this on my desktop real quick. I'm going to call it Product Launch. Let's call it actually Product Alpha. That way it has a name. Product Alpha Launch. And I'll save it once again to my desktop. That way I can easily find it later on. Now click Save. Now that we've defined our project, we can start to define it even further. See, right now, we're just working with a regular calendar for project, which is going to be that Monday through Friday. What I want to do is assign a project calendar that I've created myself. So the first thing we have to do is create a project calendar. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to choose Change Working Time, which can be found in the Project tab under the Properties command group. And you'll see Change Working Time here. I'm going to give that a click. And you'll see that it's following a standard calendar here. Now, a standard calendar is going to be Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., with an hour break for lunch from 12 to 1. We have two other calendars as well, a night shift calendar and a 24-hour calendar. The night shift calendar is very similar to the standard, but at night. You're going to see from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m., and then from 3 to 4 is the hour break for lunch, and then 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. It also fills in that gap from 11 p.m. to 12 a.m., just in case there's any turnover. The last option is 24 hours. And this represents a calendar for those projects that might use equipment that runs for 24 hours a day. So that's when you use that from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. every single day. But what we want to do is just simply use the standard. You'll see that it will gray out all of our weekends here, Saturdays and Sundays. And if you wanted to, you can even create your own calendar, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Microsoft gives us many calendars that we can use for our project plan. But what happens if we have exceptions? I know that my project starts in June 1st, so I want to be sure that I also include maybe holidays. So I'm going to go to create a new calendar where we can create a calendar just for this project plan. Once I click on this calendar, it's going to open it up and it's going to ask me how I want to create it. I'm going to say that I want to create a copy of standard. So you can make a copy of any of the previous calendars that Microsoft gave us. Now I know that I still don't want weekends included. I want it to be Monday through Friday, 8 to 12, 12 to 1 hour break for lunch, and then 1 to 5. So I'm going to use the standard here. Next, I'm going to change the name of it because I don't really like it saying copy of standard. I'm just going to call this Product Alpha Launch Calendar. And I'll click OK. Now, if you click in the dropdown, you'll notice we have 4 different calendars. The 3 that Microsoft gave us and the one we just created. At this point, we can start to add in exceptions. And I want to be sure that 4th of July is included in this. So I'll click here and I'll include 4th of July. So under exceptions, under the name, we type in 4th of July, and then under the start, we can click the little drop down and choose when that would start and when that would end. And I'm going to choose the 4th, just like that. If you want to add in any other exceptions, like maybe you have certain days off for work or holidays, you're more than welcome to do that. Once you're done setting up your calendar, you can then click OK. Another thing that's really important here is the details about this calendar. You'll see that if you click into details, you can also choose working times and change the way that you work. Maybe your company only works till 4, so you can change this to 4 instead, and that's how it will calculate the day. But for now, I think this is okay for the details. We're going to say that it's a fully non-working day, and I'll click cancel, and then I'll click OK. Now, before we can start to work on this project, even though we just created a project calendar, we're not done yet. We actually have to assign the project calendar. So the first thing we'll do is go over to project information where we were before under the project tab and give that a click. At this point, it'll open up our project information, and you'll remember we chose June 3rd as our start date. But if you look at the calendar, this project is still using Microsoft's calendar standard. After you create your own calendar, you have to then assign it to the actual project. Otherwise, it won't work. So all that hard work you did by creating the calendar, putting in any exceptions, you won't be able to use it unless you assign it. Now that I've assigned this, I can click OK. And now we're good to go. Now that I've defined my project plan, the next thing to do is add the tasks. Now, before we add the tasks, you'll see here that we have our spreadsheet side and we have our Gantt chart side. And since I'm not using the Gantt chart at the moment, what we can do is go right between the two, and you'll see this little border. And if you just hover over it, your cursor will change to a double-headed arrow, and this will allow for you to click and drag. We can minimize the view a little more. That way we can focus more on a spreadsheet. Now, to enter in tasks, all you simply have to do is click into the task name and start typing. And what you want to do is enter in every single step that you think it's going to take you to finish this project, including the different phases it may take you. So I'm going to start off with what's known as the planning phase. So for this product alpha launch, we're going to need some planning. After that, when I press enter, you'll notice that we get this little pin with a question mark. We're going to talk about that in a moment, but let's just keep going for right now. I'm going to take the planning phase, press enter, and now put in the different tasks that I need to do for those. So the first thing is we're going to conduct marketing research. Now, if this ever happens to you where we're putting in conduct marketing research and it sort of does that little word wrap and you don't like that, you want it all on a single line, you're more than welcome to go up to the top. And right between, you could double click between the different columns and it will auto size it. And then we'll continue. The next thing after that is to develop product concept. After this, we'll probably then evaluate a supplier proposal. We'll then probably want to select the product manufacturer to see who's going to help us to create these products. So we'll say select product manufacturer. After this, we're going to have to then procure our raw materials. So I think that's good for the planning phase. Get some marketing research, develop the product concept, evaluate our suppliers, start to select who's going to actually create these products for us, and then get the materials to create the product. The next phase is probably going to be that manufacturing phase. And in this phase, we're going to have to manufacture our first production of the product. After that, we'll probably want to get into some packaging design. And I think that's good for our manufacturing phase. The next phase, I believe, would be maybe a pre-launch phase, maybe some preparations to actually launch our product. So let's just call it pre-launch preparations phase. And once again, if it is that little word wrap, we could double click. So in this phase, let's say we'll do planned marketing strategy. We'll also want to get into distribution planning there. And the last thing we may want to do is update our website for the launch. So we'll say website update for launch. And I think that's good for our pre-launch preparation phase. The last phase, I like to call it the finishing phase. And for this finishing phase, we'll have to, of course, train the sales team. So let's say sales team training. And then the launch itself, we'll say product launch event. There we go. We now have a full project plan. So we've now entered in the tasks. The next thing to do here would be to enter in the durations of the tasks. Now remember, the durations can be either estimates, or you can actually put in what you think the accurate duration would be. Now you can either enter in duration by just typing in, let's say, 30, and it'll know days by that. So if you put in 30D, it'll automatically put it in days. Now by default, project does use days. So if you just put in 30 and you press enter, well, then it would just put 30 days. Now, I don't want to put in any durations for the planning phase unless you really want to. And the reason why is because the planning phase, the manufacturing phase, the packaging phase, or the pre-launch preparation phases, those are all going to be the hierarchy. They're going to be the summary tasks. And we're going to talk about the different types of tasks in our next section. But for now, I'm going to leave those durations blank, and I'm going to just start putting in task durations. So for this first one, let's say this one's going to be 30. The development product concepts, we're going to do 15. Let's say for the proposal, 16. Let's say for the manufacturer, let's do 10 days on that one. The raw materials, we'll say 12. Then for manufacturing phase, we won't put anything because that's going to just add up all of these to the phase. So for the manufacturing first production, that's probably going to take us about 18 days. Packaging design, 15. And then the next phase we'll leave blank again. The planned marketing strategy, that might take 13 days. Distribution planning, that might take us like 13 as well. Website, that's going to probably be 4 since it's only updates. Sales team training, now be 11 days. And then the product launch event, that's the 3-day event. So we're now adding in all of this information. And once again, we're just making sure to keep the summary tasks clear because those are going to be added to create how long this entire phase is going to be, since all of these are going to be known as subtasks to the summary task. Take a moment and enter these in, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the different types of tasks in a project. Now that we've entered in our tasks, the next thing we want to do is prepare to set up for our work breakdown structure. So we want to add some summary tasks. Now, since we already have the summary tasks here, you'll notice that we left the durations blank, like for instance, the planning phase, or the manufacturing phase, or the pre-launch preparations phase, or even the finishing phase. These are all known as my summary tasks. Underneath the summary tasks are going to be the subtasks. So conduct market research, develop product concepts. All of these are going to be subtasks of the planning phase. The third type that we have is known as a milestone task. And this just marks a milestone inside of your project. So we have it set up for summary tasks and subtasks. And later on, when we start to work on our work breakdown structure, we're going to then create a relationship by using hierarchy. Now, before we get into any of that, let's add in a couple of our milestone tasks. Like I said, a milestone task allows for us to just simply put in information or milestones throughout our entire project. Now, we're going to keep this as simple as possible. Let's say that we want to do a milestone for the start of the project and a milestone for the end of the project. So since I want to start the project, very similar to any other type of spreadsheet, what we can do is right-click over here on row 1, and that will allow for us to insert a row above the selected row. So I'm going to right-click, and it's going to open up this sub-menu where I can then insert a task. Once I insert that task, I can then name the task, and we're going to just call this Start Project. Start Project. And to mark this as an actual milestone task, you'll notice that subtasks we put in durations, summary tasks we don't. But to mark it as a milestone, we're actually going to put a duration of 0. And this will tell project that we're marking this as a milestone task. And if I click away now, you'll notice that on our Gantt chart, we have a little diamond shape. This marks it visually as a milestone task. You may also notice that as we're building this entire project out, that we're starting to get bars going across. And these bars are indicating the duration of our tasks. So we're going to create one more milestone task at the end here, and we'll just call it End Project. And once again, I'll mark that with a 0 duration, and that marks it as a milestone task. So now we have milestone tasks, we have summary tasks, and we also have subtasks. Now that we have our tasks set up, let's talk about the task mode. If you see here in the first column, we have the little push pin with our question mark, and that means manually scheduled tasks. There's 2 types of task modes, manually scheduled and then auto-scheduled. You'll see here at the bottom that it automatically will say manually scheduled because that's the default of the project settings. So whenever we add new tasks, we're manually scheduling them, which means that we're not letting project do any work for us. This is important that you create all of your tasks first and you manually schedule them, and then later on you can give project full control of the durations and scheduling it out. So once you have all of your tasks, what we can do is select all of our tasks by clicking and dragging. So I'm going to select all of these, and then we're going to go over to the Task tab. And inside of the Task tab, we're going to go to the Tasks command group, and that's where you'll see Manual Schedule or Auto Schedule. And we're going to choose Auto Schedule, which is allowing for project to take full control. When we click on Auto Schedule, you'll see it's going to change a couple of things here. First off, the task mode icon changed. It's now a little rectangle with an arrow pointing to the right. Not only that, but the duration started to fill in as well. You may notice that all of our summary tasks have 1 day. Some of them will have 1 day with a question mark. This simply means that they're estimating what it's going to be because we haven't actually created any work breakdown structure or defined any relationships for these summary tasks. We're going to learn about doing that in a little bit, but let's take a look at some of the other changes that happened when we changed it to auto schedule. Besides entering the durations for our summary tasks, we also now see that we have our start and finish columns filled out for us. You'll see also over here that before our little bars were kind of cloudy, now they're solidified, and so are our milestone diamonds. So what we'll want to do now is we'll want to start to indent and create a hierarchy for our tasks. So the first thing that we need to do is select the tasks that are underneath the summary tasks. For instance, for our planning phase, we have conduct marketing research all the way through procure raw materials. You're going to select all the subtasks for that summary task. And then what you'll do is go over to the task tab. And inside the task tab, we're going to go to the schedule command group. And we're going to choose the little indentation icon right here. When you do that, it creates the hierarchy between the subtasks and the summary tasks. And you'll notice that now our summary task is fully bolded and it updated the durations to 30. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. We have all these summary tasks. If you calculate all of this together, it doesn't equal 30. But the reason this is happening is because, once again, there's no work breakdown structure. We haven't defined any task relationships. So the longest task is going to be 30 days. And since we're starting all these tasks on the same day, that's why it's stating that it's going to be 30 days. Of course, this will change once we define relationships. But before we get into any of that, let's actually do the rest of these. So my manufacturing phase, let's select these two. And indent. Pre-launch preparation phase, let's select all the subtasks and indent. And then last but not least, the sales and the product launch, let's indent. We don't really need to do anything with the milestone tasks. Those are just milestones for now. If you take a look at the Gantt chart, there's a couple things happening now that we've created this work breakdown structure and created the hierarchy between the subtasks and the summary task. You'll see that we have these large brackets that are containing the subtasks. Now, of course, this isn't really a Gantt chart that's looking correct. That's because we haven't defined the relationships. And that's what we're going to be talking about now, how we can define task relationships. Now, before we get into task relationships, we have to understand all the different types and understand some of the terminology. We're going to start with predecessor task. Whenever you hear a predecessor task, it means that the task is executed before another task, so it precedes it. A successor task is a task that executes after another task. It's the successor of it. So let's say that we were doing something very simple, like maybe we're going to go for a run. What we're going to have to do to go for a run is, first off, we're going to have to put on our shoes. After that, we're going to have to put on our jacket, open the door, and then start running. Well, if we put that in sequential order and we think about it, we're going to put on our shoes, then we're going to put on jacket, we're going to open door, and we're going to start running. Now, this is going to be in sequential order. So we can say that putting on our jacket is actually the successor task of putting on shoes, because we're going to have to put on the shoes and then after that put on the jacket. So this would be marked as a successor task. Putting on shoes now becomes a predecessor task. This is a task that is executed before we put on our jacket. So if we keep doing that in sequential order, we have our predecessor, successor, successor, successor. And then all of these would become predecessors along the way. So that's the same thing that's happening here. Now that we have a better understanding of predecessor and successor, we have to talk about all the different types of relationships that we can find in our project. So we're going to talk about 4 types of relationships. We're going to start off with what's known as a finish to start relationship. And sometimes you'll see it abbreviated as FF. A finish to start relationship is when a successor task cannot start until the predecessor task has finished. This is actually the default for all tasks within project. If you don't choose any other type of relationship, it will default to a finish to start. An example of this is you're going to finish the predecessor task and then start the successor task. So if we take that example with the shoes, I can't put on my jacket until I finish putting on my shoes. So that relationship would be finish putting on shoes, and then I can start putting on jacket. Finish putting on jacket, then I can start going outside and opening the door. Finish opening the door, and then I can start running. So that's the default. It's one of the most common ones, and it puts it in a sequential order. We also have another one known as a start to start. And sometimes you'll see it as SS. A start to start is when a successor task cannot start until the predecessor task has started. So that's like me saying, you know what? As I'm putting on my jacket, I start to put on my jacket, I can also start to open the door to go outside to run. So I can save some time. Instead of waiting to put on my jacket and then opening the door, as I'm partially putting on my jacket, I can open the door. So this saves us time within a project, and some people use this to, of course, finish a project a little earlier. We then have what's known as a finish to finish. And sometimes that's abbreviated as FF, which simply means the successor task cannot finish until the predecessor task is finished. So we can say that once we finish 2 things, we can say that we want to put on our shoes and we're trying to get on our jacket as well. So I'm putting on one shoe, also getting on my jacket, putting on the next shoe. And once again, this is to save us time. So we can finish, once we finish putting on our shoes and putting on our jacket at the same time, we can open the door a lot quicker, go running. Last option is going to be a start to finish. Now, I will say that the start to finish relationship is one that's barely used, and you can abbreviate it as SF. The reason I say that it's not used so much, and I'll even put in there, not used often, is because this is if you're all over the place with your tasks. Let's say that I just list my task in any order, not in sequential order. I say, okay, in order for me to go running, I have to make sure to open the door, I have to put on my jacket, I have to run, and I have to put on my shoes. There's no order there. So if you have no order, which a lot of people put their tasks in order, if you have no order, you would do a start to finish. I would say, okay, I can start putting on my jacket after I finish putting on my shoes. I can start running after I finish putting on my jacket, right? It just goes all over the place and it gets very confusing. That's why a lot of people opt to not use this start to finish. Now that we know a little bit more about these types of relationships, I now want to show you how we can put them in the system. Since I put my tasks in sequential order, so I know how I want them to occur, what we can now do is start to put in our task relationships. So I want this task to happen first, then this one, then this one, then this one, and then this one. And we can use that finish to start relationship. Once this is finished, start this. Once this is finished, start this. Now there's 2 ways to do that. You can go into the predecessors and you can start to select what's going to happen first. But a simpler way is to just simply select all of your subtasks you're going to go over to the Task tab. And inside of the Task tab, you're going to go over to the Schedule command group. And you're going to click this little link icon. You'll see these two circles linked together. That will automatically create the default relationship, which is finish to start. So if I click on that, how awesome is this? We now see that these are adding up to 83 days. So we now know how long this planning phase is going to be. You'll see that the change of the finish here, we're starting the project on June 3rd. We're finishing it September 26th for this planning phase. You'll also see the predecessors, which will mark which column is the finish. So it's saying, okay, we can't start column 4 until we finish column 3 or row 3. We can't finish row 5 until we finish row 4, and so on and so forth. So it goes in sequential order. Also take note that our Gantt chart is now looking more like a Gantt chart, where we can see that start to finish or finish to start relationship. So you'll see finish to start, finish to start. And also the bracket has now become longer as well for our summary task. Now we have to do that for the rest of them so we can see when this project is going to end. So I'm going to select the subtasks under manufacturing phase, row 9 and 10, click my link. Row 12 through 14, click my link, and then row 16 and 17, and click my link. And we're still not done here because something's still not adding up. We see here that this is going to be 83 days, 33 days, 30 days, and 14 days. But it's still stating that the product launch event is going to be over here on June 20th. But really, my planning phase ends September 26th. So I know something isn't right. It's not enough just to create relationships between your subtasks, but the next thing we have to do is create relationships between our summary tasks. Because if you take a look at our summary tasks here, all of them are starting at the same time. And that's not what I want. I want them to start after this one's finished. So finish to start. Once we finish this on the 26th of September, start this one the next day. That makes sense. So to do this, we're going to select planning phase, hold down the control key on your keyboard and choose manufacturing phase. Continue holding the control key, choose the launch phase and finishing phase. Once we have all the summary tasks selected, we can then choose once again that link. And now we can see, and I'll just make my columns a little bigger here, that we're ending this. We're starting it on June 3rd, and we're ending this on January 13th. The last thing we may need to update here is just our end project milestone. And to do that, I would just simply use the end project to be a finish to start relationship with my finishing phase. So I'll say that finishing phase selected, hold the control key and choose end project and link them. That way I always know when my project ends and I always know when my project starts. If we now take a look at the Gantt chart as well, you'll see that it's looking like a proper Gantt now. And it's in a nice sequential order, and we can see our milestones clearly, our summary tasks, and our subtasks. Now that we've added our tasks, we've added durations, we've created relationships, what I want to talk about next is creating more of a work breakdown structure by adding numeric listing of codes for the tasks which is known worldwide. Now there's two ways to do this, and you can choose whichever way you like. I'll show you both. In Project, all the columns that you see here are pre-created by Microsoft. And there's so many more. If you right-click, let's say on task name, and I say I want to insert a column, it's going to ask me what sort of column I want, and you'll see all these different columns that are already pre-created. Now, there is a column known as an outline number, and if you select it, outline number here, so I'll right click, insert, and it's in alphabetical order, so you could quickly jump right into it. If you select outline number, this is what it looks like. It will give you a 1 for the milestone, 2 for the planning phase, and then the subtasks will be 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and so on and so forth. Now, I really do like these outline numbers, but I will admit I don't like the column. It looks separate. I don't like the way it looks. I like it better if these outline numbers were actually within the task name. If you do like the column, feel free to do that, but it's just a preference. So I'm going to delete this column out, and I'm going to show you another way to do this. Another way is to go to the Gantt chart format. And once you're in the Gantt chart format tab, you can go over to the show and hide command group, and you'll see outline numbers here as well. I like to give that a click and check mark it, because then what happens is it will actually put the outline numbers within the tasks. So if I click on it, you'll see them next to here instead. So I actually really like that a lot more when it's within the task name column. But once again, this is just preference. You can choose whichever one makes sense. Now that our project plan is coming together great, the next thing we need to think about is adding resources to our project plan and then entering the cost for those resources. Now, you could just go over and go to the resource names. If you don't see the resource name, just make sure your Gantt chart isn't covering it, because that sometimes happens. So you'll just click and drag. So you could just click here and start to type in names, but that's not the preferred way. Instead, we're actually going to switch our view for the first time to the resource sheet. So you can do that by going over to the Gantt chart where it says Gantt chart on the left-hand side and right-clicking on that, and you'll see a list of all the different types of views that we have. And one of those views is going to be called resource sheet. And let's click on that. Now, once you click into the resource sheet, you'll see the spreadsheet that has a bunch of different columns. Let's go through all the different column names and what they do. So let's start off with resource name. The resource name can be a name or a position of a resource. So you can put in their marketing team, or you could put in, the actual marketing team's name. The type is going to be the type of resource it is. Now, if you click into that, there's a little drop down. We have 3 different types: work, material, and costs. Work is going to be either people or equipment. So if you have a person working or some equipment working, you use work. Material is going to be something that's consumable. Things like paper or concrete or paint. Cost is going to be an expense. So if you have to expense something out, you can say cost. It's not a person, it's not a material, it's just an expense. If you choose material, then you would use the material column. If you don't choose material, then this column usually stays blank. But if I did choose material, this material column is a measurement of the material resource. For instance, if it was concrete, it might be in pounds, or if it was paint, it might be in gallons, or if it was paper, it might be in reams. Initials, this is actually auto-populated with the first letter of the resource name. So whenever you put a resource name in here, it will auto-populate. If I put in marketing team, it'll have an M here. Group is actually a customized column. You can put anything you want in there. It's the same with code. So code and group are just customized columns. You can use it for anything you want. And this just is included on reports. Max, well, the max is going to be the max units. So max units is usually a percentage of time the resource is available to work on a project. Now, it's important to note that time in project goes by percentage and by the actual hours in a day. By default, it's going to be 8 hours a day. So 8 hours is going to equal that 100%. If I was to say that somebody is going to work 6 hours, for instance, 6 hours would then equal 25%. And if I was to say that they were working, let's say 4 hours, right? That would be 50%. And then if they were working 2 hours, that would be 25%. So when you put their max units, it's talking about the day. Are we going to use them for the full percent of the day? Now you have to be careful with this, because if you put someone at, let's say, 50%, but you book them for, let's say, 10 hours that day, they're going to be over allocated and you're going to have to resolve that. We'll talk about resolving resource conflicts in a little bit. The next column is called standard rate. And this is just the work resources standard pay rate. It could be in hours, it can be in days, it could be in weeks. So this is just the time that they're working on the project. This is going to be their standard rate for the project per hour. This overtime rate, it's not really used. Project never initiates this rate unless you actually go in and ask for it to be overtime. So just note that you would have to put in the overtime rate and then actually choose overtime for that. It'll never just put it as overtime. It'll actually just push it out into the next day. Cost or use? Well, this is just a flat rate for every time the resource is used. So let's say that the web designer says, hey, listen, every time I work on the website, each day, I just want $100. It's not an hourly rate. It's just a standard flat rate. So even if they work 8 hours that day, it's $100. If they work 2 hours that day, it's $100. Accrue? Well, that's the cost accrual method. So there's 3 of those. We have start, prorated, and end. Start is going to be the cost accrued when the task begins. End is going to be the cost accrued when the task is complete. And prorated means it's going to be the cost accrued over the duration of the task. Prorated is typically the default that project uses. Base? Well, base is the indicator of which calendar you're using. So I'm just using the product alpha launch calendar. And yeah. So that is all of our columns. And of course, you can add more columns to this. Now that we know a little bit more about the resource sheet, let's actually start adding in some resources. Let's start off with, let's say, the project manager. Now remember, the resource name can be either the title of the person, like you could put project manager, or you're more than welcome to actually put a name in there, like my name, Joe. Totally up to you. I'll put in Joe. I'll say work. You'll see the initials automatically populate. I'll say that I'm working on this project 100% of the time, which means 8 hours a day, every single time that we're working on something. Standard rate for me, I don't know, you can make it up. I'm just going to put that I make on this project $50 an hour. No overtime, we won't worry about that. And you can even right click if you want to and hide that column. Since I'm doing a standard rate, there is no flat rate. We'll keep it prorated and we'll keep the base. I'm not really going to use group or code neither. So I'll just hide those if you don't want to see them. Next up, let's add another resource. We can add in our marketing team. Now, when you're adding in a team of people, not just one individual person, you can either add in the entire team at once or separately. The reason you would do this is that if you're adding in, let's say, a market team, and everyone makes different amounts for their standard rate, you would put them in separate. So, for instance, I would say Sarah, and you can even put in like team lead or whatever you like in here. So we have Sarah, team lead, is working 100% of this. And Sarah for this marketing team is, let's say, making $55 an hour. And then underneath Sarah is Sam, and let's say Lisa. Let's say Sam is making 40 and Lisa is making 35. So now we have in here 3 of the same team members, right? But they all make different rates. That would be different if I said my sales team. Let's say my sales team consists of Mark, Wendy, and Wendell. All of them make the same amount. So you can either list them out separately like we did here, or I could just say sales team and then put in their standard rate. The only difference is we need to be sure that we're accounting for all 3 people. Since there's 3 people here, we have to put the max and change it to 300% because there's 3 people there. So that's the only difference. If you're adding in like a full team and all of them are working fully, the same max, the same standard rate, you can enter it in like this instead. And I'll just say that my sales team, they're all going to be making 40. And I think that's good. I think we have enough people here. Let's see, just going back over to, I'm going to right click. We can always switch back over to our Gantt chart view. And let's see who else would be working on this. Maybe a website developer and maybe a design agent. So I'm going to add in 2 more resources here. Let's do a designer, we'll say. And we'll say that designer is at a flat rate. Let's do a flat rate for this one. Designer, every time the designer works 8 hours, that designer is going to get a flat rate. So let's say $300. And there we go. For my website developer, we'll say website developer. Or once again, you can write in their name. I could say the website developer, the company is called High Tech Systems. And their standard is $120 per hour. And now we have our resource names. Now that we've created the different types of resources, we can now go back and start to assign these resources. But before we do that, what happens if one of these resources needs a certain day off that they told us about in advance? What we're going to go over next is how to create a resource calendar, kind of like how we created a project calendar before. Now that we have our resources in, let's say that the high-tech systems that's working on our website is that they can't work from December 20th to December 26th. So what we need to do is click on that resource, right click, and you'll see here that we can edit the resource information. Now, once we go to the resource information, we'll see the resource name. We can add an email. We can add in specific accounts or use group or code again. We can change the type. So there's a lot going on. What we want to do is go over to change working times. This is going to allow us to create a resource calendar for that specific resource. I'll click on change working time, and you'll see that this resource calendar is for high-tech systems. I can then go in, put in the name of the exception. I'll call it vacation, and then put in the date. So they said that they can't work in December on the 20th, which is the Friday, and they're on vacation. They finish vacation on the 26th, we'll say. And then we'll click OK. So we now know from the 20th to the 26th, it's grayed out because they can't work. They're on vacation. I'll click OK and click OK. We now have that resource calendar just for that one resource. And you can add those things in like vacations or PTO time for each of these resources. What we'll do next is start to assign these resources. So we're going to switch over by right-clicking on the resource sheet right over here, the name. And when we right-click, we'll go back to Gantt chart. And now we're back to our original. Now that we've created our resources and the resource calendars, we can now assign resources to a task. You'll see here that we have our resource column. And now if we click into it, if we click the dropdown, we have all the resources that we've created. Let's say that we're going to go with the marketing team. I know that Sarah is on the marketing team, so is Sam, and so is Lisa. I'm going to select Sam, Sarah, who's going to be the team lead, and Lisa. And then I'll click away. So now Lisa, Sam, and Sarah are all in here. And I know that they're going to be working on not only the marketing research, but also the development for the product. They're going to be working on evaluating suppliers and a couple other things as we go through. So I'm going to say that Lisa, Sam, and Sarah are working on this. And then I can also use autofill, just like other spreadsheet applications, to start to fill this in. I'll say develop product concept, and then also for evaluate supplier, and for selecting product manufacturer. I think that's good. Next up, I'm going to be the one that gets the raw materials, so I'll put my name in there. As for the manufacturing, let's do myself, and let's go with Sarah. And that means Sarah will take care of packaging design. For the marketing strategy, once again, that will be Lisa, Sam, and Sarah. So I'll select Lisa, Sam, and Sarah. Distribution plan. And for the update, I want you to take a look at this for a second. Right now, we know that based off of what project has calculated, that we're starting our project on June 3rd, 2024, and we're ending it on January 13th, 2025. But remember, we made a resource calendar for the people that are working on the website. It just so happens that we have them scheduled to work on the 19th through the 24th of December, and we know that some of those days won't work for them. The best part about Project is that once you enter in resource calendars, they will automatically readjust the entire project plan. So it's not going to end at January 13th. Let's see when it ends now when we select high-tech systems. You'll see, look, now it's going to end not on the 13th, but the 20th. So it added 7 days because they can't work some of those days that we assigned them for. We're going to go through and now put in the sales team. And then for the launch event, let's do, once again, me and Sarah. And there we go. We now have our resources in. You're more than welcome to double click and then adjust everything so you can see it all. And if you look on our Gantt chart now, you'll even see that they've added the names here. Now, if you don't like these names, you can go into certain settings and turn this off. So if you didn't want to show, these names in here, you can format that and choose the different color styles. You can choose what showcases. So I really do like the fact that you can adjust all of this. What we're going to talk about next is what happens when we have conflicts within our resources. You'll see right now we're doing pretty well. But let's say that I'm not supposed to be working 100% of this project. I have another project coming at me, so I can only spend half of my time on this project. What I'm going to do is showcase what would happen. I'm going to right-click, go back over to Resource Sheet, and I'm going to change myself from working 100% on this project to only working 4 hours a day. Now, when I do that, you'll notice that everything goes red. That's because I'm now overallocated. I was given more work than I should be. And if I go back over to my Gantt chart, you'll see all the places where I've been overallocated to work on this project. So what we need to do is figure out how to resolve this. Now, if you really want to see more granular details, you can right-click on the Gantt chart and go over to what's known as the resource usage. This will show you where I'm actually being overallocated. And you'll see here that for the raw materials, I have 8 hours. And I should only have 4 hours. Now you might think you could just type in 4 here and that could work. Yeah, that would work. But then you would have to do it for all of them. Instead of doing that, I'm going to have the system do it for me. I can do that by going back over to our Gantt chart. And then once I'm in the Gantt chart, I can then go over and resolve the conflicts by going to the Resource tab. And inside of the Resource tab, under the Level command group, you'll see a way to level all the resources. Now, of course, this is probably going to push the project out because now I can't dedicate 8 hours a day for this project. on the tasks that I need to do, I can only do 4 hours a day. So what I'll do is I'll click level all. But before that, let's take a look at when this project is planning on ending. January 20th. When I level it, it now pushes it back by 2 months. I can use this information to say, hey, listen, maybe I can work 75% of this and see what happens. So you can clear the leveling to go back for the entire project, and it'll just bring it back to normal. You can right click, go back over to the resource sheet, and then change yourself or whoever that resource is to 75%. I'm still over allocated, but it's not going to be as bad this time when I go to now level that resource. Now you'll see it's only going until March, right? Or February 4th. So now I can start to really see where I'm over allocated. And I might say, I can't really do much on the first production here. So I'm going to remove myself. You can play around this way. It'll even ask you now, I'm not over allocated at all. If, you remove the resource, you want to increase the duration but keep the same amount of work. Do you want to increase the hours, the resource works per day, but keep the same duration? Or do you want to decrease the amount of work or keep the same duration? And it's totally up to you on which type of solution you want. So I'll just keep it like that. That looks fine. And we're only now 7 days past with me only working 75%. So now that I know that I can only work 75% of this project, it has pushed the date till the 27th. And we did have it at the 20th, so we're a week now past due. And I may want to clean this up a little more so that we can finish this project a little earlier. So what I'm going to do is start to optimize this project plan. We can do this by reviewing the relationships and even updating durations if needed. So let's say that I'm looking at this and I decide that while we're developing the product concept and we're looking at the evaluating the suppliers, what we might want to do is for these two, the 2.3 and the 2.4 tasks, we could probably do these at the same time. So I might change this to a start-to-start relationship. Now, if you're wondering how to do that, what you can do is double-click and do one of these tasks. Let's do the select product manufacturer. I'm going to double-click. It's going to open up the task information where we can change the duration of the task. We can change the % complete if we're tracking actuals, or even change the scheduling mode or the start or finish date. But what I want to do is go to the predecessors tab. And in the predecessors tab, you're going to see that we have a finish to start relationship. I'm then going to change it to a start to start relationship. You'll see all the other different types as well. Start to start, finish to finish, start to finish, or even none. But the start to start means that these are going to start at the same time. And when I click OK, look at that. It actually saves us a ton of time. It now says that we'll finish this by the 3rd. And you can do that with a lot of them. You can go through and try to figure out what's going to make sense. You will notice though, since we are starting these at the same time, that now we are a little over allocated. So we want to be sure that Sarah and their team is not going to be overwhelmed. So that's where that level all, and remember level all can be found in resources, and project will try to level all of this together. And let's see what we come up with. It still goes back over to the 27th, even though it's a start to start. Let's see where else we can optimize this to just shave off a couple days. Let's say for manufacturing, for its production and packaging design, these can finish at the same time. So once again, what I'll do is I'll double click into package design and change this to a finish to finish and click OK. And that's going to save us a lot of time. But once again, it is over allocating us. So messing around with the leveling, being able to try to fix when we can start things or when we can end things, it's going to be very important that you choose what that over allocation looks like, or you take some people off of this, say, it's not as much work as we thought it was going to be. For instance, maybe for Sarah doesn't need to be on all of these. And now I can choose that we're increasing the hours the resources works per day, but keeping the same duration of work, or we're saying decrease the amount of work, but keep the same duration. So we can also increase the duration, but keep the same amount of work if it was too much. And you can choose whichever one makes sense. Then we can start to try to fix this again and see what happens. Let's put it to a finish to finish on this one. And look at that. So we're starting to see how just affecting some of these things can help us to end things earlier or start them earlier. And let's do that for this one as well. You can start these at the same time. And we'll just take Sarah off of this one. And let's take Sarah off of this one with Sam. Just work with Lisa. And if they are still overallocated, you can just change it around. Go back to the resource sheet. See that Lisa's a little overworked here. Or even just put myself back at 100% and trade places with Lisa. So it's just all about taking a look at your resources, making sure nobody's overallocated, and look at that. Now that I've decided that I can put more time towards this, I can end this on the 8th of January instead of 27th, saving us a couple of weeks. Now that we've optimized our project plan, the next thing we may want to do is set a baseline. The baseline is critical in tracking the progress of our project plan, and you can set a baseline before work begins on a project. It captures the plan's start/finish dates, durations, work, and also cost estimates, and you can save up to 11 baselines per project. Now to take a look at some of the information on our project, we can go over to the Project tab, go to Project Information, and when we click on that, you'll see down in the bottom left-hand corner, we have what's known as statistics. This is where we can see baselines if we've set them, or we can see the actual start date. You'll see here that it'll pop up this little dialog box. It'll show us our current start and finish date, our baseline if we had one, our actual if we had one when we start actually tracking tasks, and if there's any variance between our current and baseline. And then at the bottom, you'll also see duration, the work, and also the cost of the project. Once you set your baseline, if anything changes, it'll then showcase any variation to it. So let's showcase how to actually set a baseline. The first thing we're going to do to set a baseline is go over to the Project tab, go over to the Schedule command group, and click on Set Baseline. I'm going to give that a click, and you'll see we can either clear a previous baseline or set a new one. And I'll click Set Baseline. I'm going to pop up this dialog box where you can set your baseline, and you'll see here that we have up to 11 options. I'm just going to choose the first option, and I'm going to set it for the entire project, and click OK. Now at this point, it's now locked in the baseline, and to check that, we can go back to Project Information, Statistics, and see that there's information now in there. If anything changes, let's say for instance, I have to push something out, or maybe I can't do a start to start on the distribution planning. If I double click onto that, and I change this from start to start back to finish to start, I'm going to push my plan back out. And now if I go to Project Information again, and I take a look at the statistics, you'll see there is a 13-day variance between when the original baseline, when we were planning to actually finish this project on the 8th, and now we're 13 days behind. And I'll close that again. And then I'll just use Control-Z to undo that. So your baseline will always be what you're planning on getting it done by, and then that will help you keep track of whether you're going to go past that time, or maybe you'll even finish the project earlier. One last thing we'll talk about in this video is being able to share a project plan. You'll be able to share plans with others, and you can do that in various ways. Whether you want to show everything and print it, or maybe you want to just share a calendar view of the plan. The first way, if I go over to File, I can then go over to Print, and I can print this project plan. Not only will it print out the sheet, but it'll also print out the Gantt chart. The way we can see the Gantt chart, on a nice little timeline here. If I go back, I can also share this by just simply changing this to a calendar view. We can do that by right-clicking on the Gantt chart title over here on my left. And when I do this, I can then choose calendar. And now you'll see all of our information on a calendar view. And I can print that instead by going to File. Another way that we can do this, and I'll just right-click and bring it back to Gantt chart view, is by using a timeline view. Now, I know we turned the timeline off before, but we can turn it back on by going to the View tab. And in that View tab, we can go over to the Split View command group and choose Timeline. Once we click on Timeline, you'll see the timeline again. And if you click anywhere near the timeline, we'll actually get a contextual tab called Timeline Format Tools. We can click into it and start to piece together what we want to actually put on this timeline. You can add a bunch of different things. Let's say that we want to add existing tasks. I'll click on my Timeline Format tab. I'll go over to the Insert command group and start to insert existing tasks, or we can even insert milestones or call out the task. If I click on existing tasks, it'll ask me which ones I want to add. And for this, I'll probably just add my planning phase. Let's do manufacturing phase, pre-launch preparation, and finishing phase. And I'll click OK. And there we go. We now have all of the phases on our timeline. We can add other details as well, or even change the way that we have the details on here by going to the detailed timeline. It makes it a little smaller, or we can add it back. And we can also change the callouts as well. So if I want to call out the tasks instead, I can choose how I want to call them out. So I'll display them not as a bar, but I'll display them as a simple callout. If I click on it, you'll see now it's a callout instead of being in the bar, and I can do that for each of these. I actually really like this a lot. Once you're done, you can then choose how you want to send out this timeline, whether you're going to send it as a email or presentation for PowerPoint, or even just a full-size document, which will send it to Word. If we do email, we'll enter in our email address. If we click on for presentation, it'll actually open up in a PowerPoint document, and then I can paste it in there. Or I can open it up as a full size and then open up Word. And then I could just paste it straight into the Word document. And I'll use Control V. And there it is. Now, of course, we'll probably have to make this a lot smaller and also change the layout. Instead of being a portrait, we'll put it to landscape. And that looks a lot nicer. And then I'll make this a little smaller. And there it is. So it's always nice to represent different ways of looking at your project, and you can send it out in many different ways, whether you want to print, turn it into a timeline, or even turn it into a calendar. Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Joe. I'm going to be facilitating this course for you today. We are back here with Project 365 Advanced version. We have some great examples for you today, and we're going to go over some great content. We are going to be using the same project file from the first video, so if you've checked out my project introduction video, we're going to be using that, but we do have it linked right here. As we discussed in the last video, these are the 5 phases of project management. We have an initiation phase, a planning phase, an execution phase, a monitoring phase, and then a closing phase. Now, most of what you do in project is happening within the planning phase. We're planning to get a project done. We're estimating durations, adding in costs. And a lot of times, project won't be anywhere in the initiation phase or the closing phase. But it does dive a little bit into the execution phase because we're going to start tracking our actuals and putting them into project. So I'm going to show you how to track our tasks, but just note that this will take place in the execution phase when you're already starting the project. Before we start tracking actuals, the first thing I want to do is just remove my timeline that we created in our first video. We're going to go over to the View tab, and inside of that View tab, we'll head over to the Split View command group and just deselect the little check mark for timeline. Once you do that, you'll see more of an overview of your sheet and your Gantt chart. The next thing I want to do next is talk about how we can start to add in our tasks. And this is important because this comes within the execution phase. We're actually doing these things. So far, all we've been doing is to plan this project out. Now things are getting completed. So let's say that in the planning phase, we want to say conduct marketing research is done. We've 100% completed it. So we're going to go over to the task tab, and inside of the task tab, we're going to head over to the schedule command group. You'll see up top we have different increments of percentages of complete. So I could say something wasn't completed, or 100% completed, or I can use any of the other ones as well. Let's say that I click on 2.1 task. I'm going to click on my 2.1 task, and I'm going to then click on the 100%. You're going to notice a couple things happen. First off, in our indicator column, we get a little check mark stating that this is 100% completed. Not only that, but if we look on our Gantt chart now, and I'll make it a little bigger for a moment here, you'll see a solid line inside of our bar. So that is the percentage line. You'll see it goes all the way to the end of the task because it's 100% completed. And you'll notice that on the other bar, there's nothing. But let's say we did get a little bit completed on 2.2 task. So I'll just move this back over, click on 2.2 task, and let's say we're about 50% done with this one. Now, once again, we don't have a way of telling if it's 100% unless we see that check mark only. There's no indicator as to what percentage completed this is, and the only indication is a visual one over here on our Gantt, where we see the solidified bar going through halfway. So we're at 50%. Now that's all going to change once we talk about a next topic, which is the tracking table, where we can then see those percentages. But before we get into that, let's go over to the Project tab, and we're going to click on Project Information, which can be found in the Properties command group, right here. Once you click on that, in our previous class, we did create a baseline. And to see that, you can go to the bottom left-hand corner and see our statistics. Now, once you click on those statistics there, it's going to open up the statistics for the project, where we have the current, start date, finish date, our baseline, which is right on track with what we wanted to start. That's when we're planning on finishing. So we have a 0-day variance. And now we have an actual that's filled out, but because we actually started doing work on this project. We still have NA for finish because, well, we haven't finished the project yet. But now that we have our actuals in, you can see here how many actual days we've been working, 35.62, how many actual hours we've put into this project so far, and how much money we've actually spent on this project so far. We see the remainder for all three, and we see our currents and baselines, which are all matching up, which means that we're still on schedule and nothing has really changed. Towards the bottom here, you'll get another little report that tells you the duration and also how much work was completed. And we're going to talk about the difference between our durations, our work. Durations are based off of days, work are based off of the hours within the day. And by default, we have Monday through Friday for a project plan, weekends off, and each day is going to be 8 hours of work. So I'll just close this out just like that. And what we're going to get into next is how we can now see some of those percentages and also a difference between if there's a percentage complete versus a physical percentage complete. When you're tracking actuals, you may not want to be working in this default table, which is known as the entry table. Marking tasks is one thing, but if you want to see actual columns, there's another table for that called the tracking table. So you'll see here we marked 2.1 as 100% complete. And the only indicator at 100% is the check mark, and also looking at our Gantt chart view. For 2.2, however, we marked it at 50% complete, and the only indicator for that is just the Gantt chart. What happens if I want to see that actual 50%? So the way we do this is by going over to the View tab, and inside the View tab, we're going to head over to the Data Command group, and we're going to select Tables. Now at this point, when you click into Tables, you'll see the Entry table, and that's the one that was built in by Microsoft. They give us quite a few different ones as well, like Cost, Hyperlink, Schedule, and you could take a look at those. But the one I really want is the Tracking one, because this is going to offer us actuals, which means when did we actually start, or when did we actually finish, what percent complete, what physical percent complete. So let's click into Tracking. And we still get our Gantt chart on the side, but now we have a different table. And it has all these different columns like actual start time. So when did we actually start this? Right on time. When did we actually finish? Right on time. We're 100% complete. You'll also see here that we have 2.2, which is at 50% complete. So we have our percent complete column. Now, a lot of people at this moment ask me, what is the big difference between percent complete and physical percent complete? Well, percent complete is the duration. Physical percent complete is how much of the work you actually got done physically. So for instance, for this task 2.2, we've spent 50% of the duration. This is a 15-day task. That means that we've actually worked half of that, 7.5 days. And we have a remainder of 7.5 days because we're halfway through. That doesn't mean that in this 7.5 days, we've done 50% of the work. We could have only done 35% of the work. And that's where physical complete comes in. So half of the duration has passed, but in this 7.5 days, we've only gotten done 35%. And we'll finish the rest of this percentage on the other 7.5 days. So this is really nice if you want to track your physical percent versus just duration. Let's say that we want to start to track our actuals, which means what actually happened. Let's take, for instance, our 2.3 task. And what I'm going to do is just minimize these other tasks. That way we can see mostly just these ones and keep it more simplified. You'll see here on 2.3 that this task is going to take us 16 days. We have a remainder of 16 days duration. Now, once you start entering percentages, like for instance, if we entered in 10%, that means 1.6 days, about a day and a half, we've been working on this task. And we have about 14 and a half days left. So once again, 16 days total. But what happens if we get it done in 14 days? What would happen? Well, you can either enter in percentage complete, as you saw here. If I put 0 again, it just goes back to 0 days, and we have a remainder of 16 days. But if I go over to, let's say, actual duration, and I say that this took us 14 days, watch what happens. I'll put in 14 days. You can either click using our little increment button here, or you could just type in 14. And when you do that, it does the percentage for us. It says, Joe, you're 88% done, and you have 2 days left. But no, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to tell the system that I actually completed this in 14 days. Now, you can't do that. You can't just put a 14 here because it's just thinking, oh, well, we know it's 16 days. They actually have 2 days left. That's why it's 88%. Instead, I'm going to click into the remainder, and I'm going to choose now to say that we have 0 days left, meaning we've actually completed this in 14 days instead of 16. This will make it so the system understands that we completed this task in 14 days, and this will become 100%, and our entire project will be done a couple days earlier. So that's how you can change your actuals, what actually happened. We thought it was going to take 16 days, but now I'll click here and put a 0. We've done it in 14 days actually, and now it's at 100% complete, which is great because now we've ended a little earlier. And to showcase that, remember, if we go to the Project tab, Project Information, we can now go to Statistics, and we can see if we're any days early. And in this case, it didn't really change anything. We're still finishing this on Wednesday, January 8th. So not a big save here, but at least it took us only 14 days instead of 16 days for this particular task. So try this out on your own with a couple of these. Let's say 10 days here for our 2.4. And let's say that we did 50%, which means, of course, 5 days. And we have 5 days left. Let's say it only takes us 8 days. Remember to put in the actual duration of 8 and then to put in a remainder of 0. That way you're telling the system, we're finishing this early. And there we go, 100%. And let's see if that changed. Maybe since we did 2 of those early, it might have changed our statistics. And it did. Look at this. So we were supposed to finish on our baseline. What we captured was we're starting on Monday, ending on Wednesday. But because we finished 2 tasks earlier, now we're ending on Tuesday. So we're saving some time, which is pretty cool. As you can see, this tracking table really gave us another view of our data. And I really like it because we can start to track actuals a little more specifically instead of just seeing the entry table where we don't really have an idea of the percent complete. So this table is very beneficial. Now we can make our own custom tables as well. We can either create a table from scratch or we can actually base a table off of, let's say, this table, the tracking table. Maybe I want to add some more stuff to this. So it's really up to you. And to do this, the first thing you're going to do is go over to the View tab. And inside of the View tab, you'll head over to the Data Command group and choose Tables. Now, once you click on Tables, you'll see here, once again, all the built-in tables that Microsoft gave us. And if you go over to the bottom, you'll see More Tables. Or you can make changes to this table and then save it as a new table. So it's totally up to you on if you want to create one from scratch or create one built off of another one. Now, I'm just going to simply click on More Tables here, and it's going to pop up this dialog box where we can take a look at all the other tables we have access to. And instead of choosing to create a brand new table, which you can, I want to actually copy a table. So let's click on the tracking table because I really like that one, but I want it to have baseline values too. That way I can see when was I supposed to estimate, end, or start, or finish my tasks. So I'm going to click on the table here, tracking. I'm going to choose copy. And it's going to pop up this dialog box where we can name this. Now, I'm just going to name it tracking with, let's say tracking with my baseline values. Yeah, that looks good. So tracking with my baseline values. Now at the moment, it's going to show you all of our different columns. It shows us the name of the tasks, the actual start, actual finish, percent complete, and we can choose which ones we want to get rid of. For instance, I don't mind right now about the actual work, so I can click on it and I can just delete this. Or maybe I don't want actual cost neither. So you can just press the delete key on your keyboard. What I do want to add, however, is I'm going to actually insert a row. And this works kind of like an Excel table. I want to have my actual start, but I want to have my baseline start as well. But I want it to be underneath it. So just like Excel, to insert a row, it's going to go above wherever you're selected. I'm going to select actual finish and choose insert row. Once I do that, it'll insert between start and finish. Click the drop down, and now we can go look for baseline start and baseline finish. So there's my baseline start. And then I'm going to click percent complete and insert a row and choose baseline finish. Now that I've done that, I'll click OK. But before I click OK, just note that when you click into this little table selection here, you'll see that list of built-in tables that Microsoft created. If you don't want to have to go looking for this table that you've now created, you can actually showcase in the menu by checkmarking Show in Menu. That way you don't have to go searching for it, it'll just be at the top. So I'm going to select Show in Menu and then click OK. and then you can close this. Now when you click on tables, you'll see Microsoft's tables, but then you'll see your tracking with my baseline values table that you just created. And you can click on it. And how cool is this? We now have actual start, baseline start, actual finish, and baseline finish. And as you can see, because we ended early on some days, that instead of ending on, let's say the actual was the 23rd, we were supposed to end on the 27th, but we saved some time. Same thing with our 2.4 task. We were supposed to end on Tuesday the 10th, but we ended early because we got it done quicker on Friday the 6th. And the best part about this table is you can scroll over a little bit and you can even add more columns that you want. So let's say that I want to add another column, maybe to see the baseline cost. And there we go. You can add as much as you want here. So even though Microsoft does give us some great tables that we can utilize, we can create our own. Now, I showed you how to build this table based off of a table that already exists. I just want to show you what it looks like if you will create a new table. So let's click back onto table and go to more tables. At this point, we can click new to create a new table. But before we do that, it's important to note that the table you just created, this one right here called tracking with my baseline values, this is only living in this project. If you open up another file, it may not be there, depending on how you organize it. Let's say that I know I'm going to use this table in all of my future projects. I'm going to click on it and go to Organizer. And you're going to see here the global Microsoft. And this is going to be every table that is in the actual application. And then you're going to see product alpha launch, which is this specific file, and all the tables that are in here. You will notice that if I want to, I can take this and copy it over into my organizer. So I'm going to say copy over. I'll say yes. And now I can use this table in all my future projects, which is nice. You're moving it a copy, not actually just moving it, but making a copy from your one file to the actual project application. And this is really cool because now I can use it all the time. Now, as for creating a new table, you just click new and it's just a blank list here. So you can truly put in whatever you want and then name the table. So take a moment and try that out on your own. Create a table from scratch, choosing what fields make sense for you. I'll click cancel, close, and give you some time to do that. Let's take a moment to switch back to our entry table. We're going to go once again to the View tab. And inside of the View tab, we're going to go to the Data Command group and choose Tables. We're going to go back to our default view, Entry, and that's the one that Microsoft gave us right away. I'm going to make my Gantt chart a little smaller here so we can see at least the resource names. And what we're going to talk about next is when we have to actually move a project. Currently, this project is going to be starting on June 3rd, 2024. And now that we got all the information, we can actually start this project sooner than expected. We're going to move it up by about, let's say, 2 weeks. So instead of going in and updating all the actual starts, what we can do is allow for project to do the work for us. We can do that by going up to the project tab, and inside of the project tab, going over to the schedule command group and choosing move project. We're going to choose that option. It's going to pop up this dialog box and it's going to say that this project contains actual values. Do you still want to move it? And we're going to say yes, that's fine. We'll just move it and we'll say that we got those done because we marked some of them as completed or being worked on. Or if you want to just try this out right now, what we could do is click into each of these, all the ones that we put the actuals in, go back to tasks and click on 0%. Then we can go over and you'll see that we're going to get some conflict resolutions because we did change some of the dates here. We can just change it back to what it was. We could just say that this is going to take us 16 days. And we'll say that this is going to take us 14. However you like to do this. Totally up to you. But once you set up everything, you can then go over once again to the project and choose to move the project. I'm going to keep my actuals on here because I don't mind. And I'm going to say moving the project will put the dates where the actuals were reported. And I'll say that's fine. I'm going to choose this new project start date. And I'll say that it's going to take 2 weeks beforehand, so on the 20th. And I'm going to click OK. It'll also give you the option to move any deadlines as well. I'm going to click OK on this. And there we go. It moves everything nice and neatly here. And we know now that we're going to finish this on December 24th, 2024. Now at this point, once again, we do have a conflict here. This one wasn't done yet, so you could just put this task at 100% if you wanted to and get rid of that conflict. Because we already did the planning phase, we'll pretend. And there we go. We've now moved this project successfully. And this is the easiest way to move your project without actually going in and changing all the different durations or start and finish date. In our previous exercises, we actually hid some of our tasks. We're going to actually go back over here to each summary task and click the little icon. That will allow for us to expand out and see all of the other tasks as well. So there we go. That's our full list. Now, sometimes you may want to filter your task list. Now, this is a short list, but sometimes they can be quite long, occupying hundreds of rows that I've seen. And sometimes you just want to see certain types of things, or you want to maybe see if all of your tasks are completed or maybe incompleted, and we can do that by applying filters. Now, there's 2 ways to filter your tasks in project. You can either do it from the ribbon, which would be in the View tab. You'd go over to the Data Command group, and you click on Filter. So that's one way we can do this. Another way is just to click the drop downs right over here on your headers. So these are your field names here. And you can click the drop down and you can start to filter. And they have quite a few. So this is more of a traditional filter. There are built-in filters within this filter command on the ribbon. If I click on this drop down, let's say I just want to see all the tasks that are maybe incomplete. I'll click on incompleted tasks, and anything that was at 100% is now not here. If I choose to change, let's say 2.5, I'll change that to 100%. And we can do that right here. Now I have my check mark here. And then also I'll do my milestone at 100% as well. And now to actually reapply that filter, all we need to do is go back to View and just choose it again. And then it will update it. Just like that. And then if I want no filter, I could just click on no filter. But they have quite a few of them. Whether you want to look at active tasks or completed or critical tasks, just means they're on their way of being late and we need to get them done as soon as possible. Or you could see your late tasks. And you have quite a few other ones that you can either create by clicking on new filter, or you can also display auto filters as well and turn those off. But those are on by default, so I like to display them. And once again, you can choose what you want. So if I want to see all of the resources that are just for me, I could just choose myself and click OK. Now this is all the stuff that I'm part of. So it's really nice that we can filter, and you can always clear all your filters by just clicking Clear Filter, or by going to the filters and choosing Clear Filters. The only time this will not be available is if there's any filters that are on or not on. So if I have no filters on right now, it doesn't matter even if I click it, it's going to be the same result. So take a moment and try that out. Try some filters that you can just do right here from the columns. Try some filters that you can do that are pre-built in. And if you want to try to create your own new filter, you can click into that. You'll see here that we have our and ors, where we can create a filter, choose the name, choose what the logical test is, and what the values are. So for instance, maybe I only want to see tasks that are 13 days duration. So I could go here, go to, let's say, duration. You can just click the D on your keyboard to get you to duration faster. I can use the comparison operator, equals, and I could put 13. And then I'll just call this 13 days duration. And then when I click apply, you'll see I only have my two tasks, 4.1 and 4.2, that are 13 days in duration. And then it stays right there. You can use that custom one whenever you want. I could go to no filter and then choose to turn it back on again. So a lot of fun stuff here. Take a moment and try this out. Go through all the different types of filters that you can. And then we're going to talk about being able to highlight our data as well. Filtering allows for us to see specific things instead of seeing all of our tasks. But what happens if you do still want to see all your tasks, but you visually want to see a condition? For instance, let's say that I want to see highlighted all of my tasks that aren't completed yet. Instead of just filtering for it and then not seeing all my tasks, I can go to the same place we just were, where we go to the View tab, Data Command Group, and you'll see right here is Highlight. And if you click into that dropdown, you can highlight, once again, built off of any custom filters. These are shared. You can take a look at incompleted tasks. And now it's highlighting all my incompleted tasks. So where filters will just showcase only incompleted tasks, highlighting allows you to see all your tasks. Plus, you can visually specify what you want. So if I just want to see my completed tasks, here we go. And you can create your own new highlight filters as well, the same way that we did it with the regular filters. And that's why we have access to using our custom 13-day duration that we created before and highlighting it. Then once I'm done, I can click no highlight and we go back to normal. Now, if you click into the tasks tab, just note that you don't always have to just use that highlight button. If you wanted to, you can format any of this. So for instance, if I want all of my planning phase to look a certain way, I can select it all and choose the little bucket icon to actually change the color of the cell. So maybe I want these to be all blue. Maybe I want this to be red. This one's going to be green. And let's do, for this one, let's do orange. And there we go. So now we're color coding. So you could just use the highlight to highlight specific tasks that you want, or you can even use color code to color code your entire task list. So far, we've gone over filtering and also being able to highlight our tasks. The other thing that you can do is group your tasks. But just a quick warning, if you are going to group your tasks, your Gantt chart is going to become unusable because it's not going to make sense the way that they group it. So just keep that in mind. If you are going to group, you could just minimize your Gantt chart by clicking and dragging. And there you go. Now you'll see that grouping is going to be found in the View tab. And inside of that View tab, you'll see it in the Data Command Group. Underneath Highlight and Filter, just like we were before, the last option is Group By. And you can select what you want to group by, whether you want to group by active or inactive, or auto-scheduled versus manually scheduled. You can even group by duration. So I'll select duration, and you'll see now all of our tasks that have 0 days, 3.75 days, and it groups them nicely. But if we look at our Gantt chart, once again, it becomes unusable because look what it looks like. Kind of all over the map. So it doesn't really make sense. It's not sequential. So that's why I say we probably won't use it. If you want to stop grouping, just go back to the drop down and choose no group. You can also group by creating a new group and choosing what the conditions or criteria are. But yeah, take a moment and try this out. I'll group by resources and we'll see everything that I have to do, what me and Sarah have to do, Lisa and Sam have to do. And there you go. And I'll just put no group again. Microsoft Project gives you the ability to create project reports. Now you'll find all of the project reports on the Reports tab. So if you go to the top, click into Report tab, you'll see all of the different reports you can view. Whether you want to create a new report, or maybe create a dashboard, or take a look at some of the custom reports. We're going to be talking about all the different reports, and I'll walk you through what each of them does. And then what we'll do is take a look at our dashboard and also visual reports. Let's get started with our resource reports. Resource reports are great. It allows for you to take a look at your resources. So if we click on the little drop down next to resources, we can see there's two reports, over-allocated resources and resource overview. Let's click into over-allocated resources. This report has two charts, none of which are populated because, well, again, we don't have any over-allocated resources in our project plan. But it would show you the actual and remaining work, as you can see in the work status. Not only that, but we also have an over-allocation chart as well, and it would show you any actual over-allocations. The next report is going to be what's known as the Resource Overview Report. And once again, you can always go to the Report tab to find all of these reports. So we'll go to Report tab and click on Resources again. In the Resource Overview Report, you'll see that we have two charts in a table. The first chart is a combination chart, and its columns are aligned here with actual work, remaining work, and baseline work. And then we also have here our work status, where it'll show you the percentage completed. So if you start to track actuals, you'll see how much I've done towards the project, or Sarah, or Sam, or even Lisa. The table, this is going to be showcasing the resource status. So when I actually started work and when I finished it, and how many remaining work hours that I have. It's important to note that all of these reports are actually customizable, which means I can click on any of these and I'll get a pane over to my right-hand side where I can start to add more fields or change the filter or even group or sort these reports. We're going to go over how we can do that in a moment, but let's talk about some of the other report options that we have up top. You'll notice that we do have what's known as cost reports. And these reports are great because we have so many. We have cash flow, cost overruns, earned value reports, resource cost overview, and task cost overview. Now, let's say that we wanted to take a look at the cost overruns, for instance. This one's going to have two charts and two tables. You have a task cost variance chart, where it will show you if there was any variance between what your baseline was, or maybe we even saved money. And then we have the resource cost variance. And once again, we're going to be saving money here. And the reason being is, if you remember in the previous example, we actually saved some time in our day, so we didn't have to pay the workers so much. And then we have here the start project, all of our different task names, and the percentage complete. And then over here, we have how much our baseline was, and then if there was any cost variance. You'll see that Sam and Lisa actually had a baseline of $26,000 we quoted them for, but because we finished early on some of those tasks, we actually ended up only paying $25,000, which means we saved about $1,280. Another report here in our costs is cash flow. So you can see here the actual cost, our baseline cost, and how much we have remaining. And you'll see the variance once again because we ended those 2 days early. Going back over to the cost report, we have earned value reports. These are nice as well to see if there's any earned value. Now you will notice that we have two things here. We have the EAC, which is our earned value, and we also have the ACWP, the BCWP as well. And it'll even showcase what the actual cost was or what the baseline cost was. So you'll see over here that all of our charts do come with learning more. So if you're like, I don't really know, what these acronyms mean, you can always go back over here and read about them, which is nice. Going back over to the costs, we can also take a look at resource cost overview. This will showcase two charts. One is going to be that clustered column with a line, so a combined chart. And then we also have a pie chart over here with cost details at the bottom. We have our task cost overview, and this is going to show us the cost status. So what has actually been paid out already and what's remaining. And then if we're on track for the baseline, we'll see here the status complete and future tasks that need to be completed, and then a cost details sheet at the bottom. Once again, you can add as many tables or charts to these as you want, or you can create your own custom ones. Next up, we also have what's known as our in progress reports. Now, I really do like the in progress reports. These will show us critical tasks, so tasks that may be about to be a little late. We don't really want them to be late, but if they do slip, for instance, these tasks, if any of them are changed, will make the entire project late. If you change other tasks that are not listed here, well, then you're good to go. You can actually change those. In progress, we also have late tasks. Now, we don't have anything late, which is good news. So if there's nothing here, that's good. We have milestone reports. So you'll see late milestones that are coming up, or ones that have been completed. You can see that we do have the start project, which is completed because we marked it at 100%. And then we also have here slipping tasks. Once again, tasks that if we change them in any way, then they could slip into a late category. You will notice that we do have a little tutorial where it'll even tell you to learn tips and tricks about project. If you click on this Get Started, you have Best Practice Analyzer, Create Reports, Getting Started with Project. If you click into one of them, it's a fun little presentation that will walk you through how to organize tasks or create reports, or even share this project with your team. You can go through and just click Start. It's a fun little, like I said, presentation here that you can go through. So you have organized tasks, creating dynamic reports, sharing with your team. Pretty amazing. And you can look through all of those. Those are really nice. What we're going to talk about next is how we can customize our own report. And we can create new reports by going to New Report and creating it from scratch. And then they will show up here in the Custom Report section. Okay, now that we know a little bit more about our report section, I want to show you how we can actually edit the report layouts. So any of those reports that you saw here in our report tab, you can actually click on any of these and start to change them around, depending on what your needs are. Let's say I go to the in progress and I want to take a look at, maybe just my critical tasks or even my milestone reports. You'll see here that it gives us our main milestone report, tells us if there's any past due milestones or if there's any upcoming or the ones that have been completed. This is great information. But maybe I want to add some more here. So I'm going to go over to my report design, and this is where we can start to add things like text box. We can add tables or charts, shapes, or even company logos. I'm actually going to add a company logo real quick. Take a look. I'm going to go with this one. And I'll add it right over here. Just make it feel a little more like our own report. I'll also put in a table over here as well. And I'm thinking that this table is going to have the name, the start, the finish, and the percentage complete. But I do want to add a little bit more to this table. Let's do my layout. My layout looks pretty good. You'll see here we can change the height, the width, text direction. And then if I want to take a look at my table data, I can do that as well. But yeah, I'm going to double click into here to see my field list. And I'm thinking what I also want to see here is, let's see, the percent of work complete. All right, 64%. That's not bad. And what else can we do? Let's look at the work. There are so many different things you can choose from. Let's take a look at other work. Maybe we want to take a look at the status of everything. Future task. And this just looks great. We can just start to build this out. Maybe I want to see some of the costs, actual cost. Let me make this a little bigger. And there we go. That looks awesome. Now, right now, we're just looking at the overall project, but we can choose what we want to look at, whether we want to see, instead of just the project summary, all the subtasks. That looks really nice. Or we can also take a look at, let's do level 1. So now we're looking at our subtasks as well as our summary tasks, or just level 2. or let's try level 3. And there we go. We are now starting to edit our report layouts. This wasn't in the original report layout for this milestone report, but you can change them anytime you want. Now we have a nice looking report and information that makes sense to us as well. Now, as you can see here, we customized this report layout, but this wasn't our report. It was actually one that Microsoft gave us, and we chose our milestone report. We can create our own custom reports as well. And even though this might sound a little confusing, you would think that going to custom, you would see it. But no, custom is going to show you all the reports you already created. In order to actually create a custom report, you have to go to new report. And then we can start with either a blank or a chart or a table or even a comparison. Let's say I want to start just blank. I'll name this report. I'll call it Joe's main report. We'll have to just change that Joe's apostrophe. We'll just say Joe main report. Now, of course, this doesn't make sense here. It kind of says Joe main report, and well, I'd rather it say Joe's main report. But I do want to add just an apostrophe S. Now, you'll notice that if you try to start typing in here, it doesn't work. And this is just a little bit of a bug that's been in the system for a while. You actually have to go in a couple times, right click on it, exit editing, go back in, and then you can start typing. I don't know why it does this, but if it still happens to you, just right click once again, edit, exit edit, and then click back in and you can start typing. I don't know. It's just a funny little bug, but it's fixable. Now I put Joe's main report here. I'm going to just put that up a little more there. And this is where we can start to once again use the report design to add in charts and shapes and things that we want. Maybe I want to add in, let's do a table again. And this time for this table, let's do the start and finish is fine, % complete. I do want to put in who the resource is, and I also want to see the cost of the report. So what is my cost? There we go. And I'll make this a little bigger. We'll then change it. I do not want to just see the summary. Let's actually see all the subtasks. And for this, we can start to change it. We can choose to filter certain ones, like maybe I just want to see completed tasks. And there we go. We're seeing everything that's completed. So this is a nice look at my start, everything that I've completed so far. But I don't want to just use this. I also want to have a nice chart over here. So I'm going to go to report design, chart. I think I'll use a pie chart. That sounds good. And we can see all the work that's being done. So maybe we want to see the budget work or actual work that's happening. We can choose whichever makes sense. So let's see our actual work there. Make it a little bigger. That looks good. We'll put it over here. And now we're just creating our own customized report. We can then add in, once again, images, logos. I'll do my logo again. Make that a little smaller. Put it right over there. And now we have a nice little report. And of course, we can continue to add things to this report. I'll just go down a little bit more. And let's go with, let's do one more thing. Let's go to shape. Add in some shapes here. Maybe a little star. This could be like a star report. Yeah, that's cool. And I think that'll look good. Let's actually change the color to this. I want this to be there. It is. That looks a lot nicer. And there we go. We now have Joe's main report. Now, once you create the report, to access this report later on, we're going to have to go back to the report. And you'll see here under Customize, now we have Joe's main report. I know that it seems a little weird to have to go to New Report, create the custom, and then go to Custom. You'd think the button would be right here. That's okay. Just always remember If you want to create a custom report, new report, you can choose any of these templates that pre-exist, then go back over to custom once the report's done, and you can take a look at some of the reports I've done in the past. This one's a really awesome one, just overview report, or go back to this main report. Another type of report I really like to use is known as a visual report. You can find these over here on the export command group under the report tab. And what this report allows for us to do is actually export this to visual report within two applications, Visio and Excel. When you click into visual reports, it might take a moment because it is gathering the information from the other applications. And you'll see here that it's showing both templates from Microsoft Visio, Microsoft Excel. If you use Visio or Excel, this is the place to pick. If you don't use Visio, you can just deselect it and see all of the Excel reports, or vice versa. You can just select Visio and deselect Excel. And it gives you nice little previews here of what it's going to look like. But we're going to keep things simple today with an Excel report. And I just want to go with a cost report here. And I'm going to choose to view it. Once I do that, it's going to gather all the information, build the OLAP, and then it's going to take this Excel report and put it into Excel. You'll see that it turns it into a pivot chart, which I love. And we can quickly start to take our fields and change the way this report looks. We also have filtering capabilities as well. So if you click the drop down, you can start to see, okay, maybe I just want to look at 2024. And now we're just looking at 2024. Or we can say, I want to see all of them. But it's solely up to you on how you truly want to see these reports. And there we go. And I'll just select all again. So our cost, our baseline is going to be $67,000. This is for that product alpha launch. This is our planning phase. And we can see this cost is going to be $64,008, and this one's $64,008 as well. So it's showcasing all the information for our planning phase, manufacturing phase, what we've already spent in cost. Once we end the project, of course, then you'll see here, these are the milestones. There won't be anything start, but we do have our finishing as well, pre-launch preparations, and so on and so forth. If you want to take a look at the tasks, you can always just click to dive deep into, okay, I just want to look at planning phase. And maybe I just want to look inside of the planning phase under conduct marketing research. So just pick and choose what makes sense. Click OK. And there we go. That's going to be your baseline cost, your actual cost so far after you completed, and what your planned cost was. So it looks like we are right on schedule with cost. We're not over budget. We are at the exact budget that we wanted. We've gone over all different types of reports, and if we combine those together, we can actually take a look at some of the dashboards that Microsoft gives us. It's still going to be in the report tab, but you'll see in the report tab under the view reports command group, we actually have an option for dashboard, and they have quite a few of them. We can look at the burn down dashboard, and it gives us our work burn down and our task burn down as well. We can take a look at our cost overview. I really like this dashboard a lot. It's one of my favorite ones. Progress versus cost. So how are we doing on percent complete? It looks like we're doing good. The cost is going up a little bit. We do have a cost of $108,000, and then we have a remainder, and we're at 49% complete. So we're almost like halfway, a little less for that remaining cost. And then we have the cost status of what we've spent, where we spent it, and if there was a variance. You'll see once again, the cost went up a little more because we do have a little bit of a variance. We were supposed to do a baseline cost of $67,000, but the actual cost was a little less. So that's good news. And you'll see here the cost status as well, what's remaining, what the actual cost was, because the planning phase is completed. This one's going to be fully in orange. These ones are going to be remainders. Another one that we have access to is the project overview, another favorite of mine. It tells us that we're 100% complete with start and planning phase. We haven't really started on any of these other phases. It gives us our percentage and then any milestones that are due or coming up. This next one is also known as the upcoming tasks. So it'll just showcase anything that's upcoming or starting soon. Nothing so far, so we're good to go. And then our work overview as well. Our percentage work complete, how many hours we've worked, how many are remaining. And then you'll see here, this is a nice work breakdown. It's going to show you how much you have left. So those are all the different dashboards. Of course, once again, you can create your own dashboard report by going to the new report, and you can do like a comparison. It's still going to be under custom, but you can call it a dashboard if you like. It's just a bunch of reports being put together into one page. But yep, all these reports are available to you. All of them, once again, are just really amazing. This one being one of my favorite, and also the cost. Now that we've talked about some of these reports, the next thing I really want to talk to you about is, let's change it back to our Gantt chart, changing into a template mode. See, they have amazing templates for us, but what we could do is create our own templates as well. So I want to showcase how to do that. I'll just save what I have so far here, and let's actually open up a brand new project. Let's go like this. And I'm going to just do a blank report. Now at this point, what I would do if I was starting off with a project template is exactly what we did when we were going through the other sections of this course. I would start off by taking just placeholders and putting them in as my task mates. This is really something I like to do, and you can use any type of durations if you want, just to showcase examples. You don't have to add durations, but as long as you have some sort of hierarchy, that's better. So what I would do is I would call this the start, and then I would call this the milestone, start milestone. And of course, since it's milestone, I'll already add in the duration of 0. And then I would just do the same thing. I would say summary, task 1. And just to keep this simple, I would just do something like that. Or if you want to go in sequential order, you can do something like this. Sorry, task 2. So like both of these. And then summary task 3. And summary task 4. There we go. So now that I have my summary tasks, I usually put in 4 just for this project template. And I can start to put in tasks underneath it. So I'm going to insert my task, and I'll put in about 3 of those. Once again, you could just do something like this. And then just do the next one as well. And then you just do it again. So if I want to take this, you can copy it. We'll do some pasting here. Paste it again, and paste it again. And then you could just change these back to what they were. And I like to put about like 4 of them in there, once again, just to keep things very simple for everyone. I'll just do subtask 1, subtask 2, subtask 3, and subtask 4. Copy these and paste. Now I'll create the hierarchy already just so that they don't have to worry about this. So let's say I'll go over to project. Let's go back over to our task and let's create some hierarchies. Boom. Select each for a hierarchy. Select each for with a hierarchy. And these ones. And then I'll do my last one, which is the end milestone. And then put 0 days for that. Now at this point, you can start putting in like durations if you want. If you want to just keep it simple, you could do like 5, 10, 15, 20. just so you're given examples. Of course, they're going to fill this out anyway on their own, but at least they'll have a nice template to follow. I'll just do this for all of them. And then if you did want to already put in predecessors and create relationships on these tasks, you're more than welcome to. The first thing I would do here, though, is select all of these and then auto schedule them. So make sure they're already in auto scheduled mode. And then you can start to create the relationships between these. Remember, you just click the link icon, and I'll just do that for each of these. And it keeps everything very uniform. 50 days, 50 days, 50 days. And of course, they'll just start filling that stuff out. Once we have this, don't forget your summary tasks. Hold down the control key to select all of those. I'll even associate it with my milestone. And there it is. It's looking great. So at this point, we have a Gantt chart look. We already have this tasks built out. The last thing I would do now is save this as a template. I'll go to File, Save As. You can choose Browse. You're going to change this to Microsoft Project Template. And it will automatically put it in its own zone. You do not want to change the location after you choose Project Template. Keep it where it is. And then I'll just say Company Project Template. And I'll click Save. Now it's going to ask you, you're about to save as a template. You can choose what you want to remove. Do you want to remove values of all baseline, things like that? We didn't put any of that in there. That's what they're going to put in there after they decide what the project is about. So I'll just click Save. Now at this point, I can exit out of this. And later on, when I go to start my project, and I'll just choose my computer. Now it's going to be one of the templates. If you don't see it here as a template, just go over to More Templates. Give that a click. Go over to Personal. And when I say personal, a lot of people will see personal down here sometimes as suggested search. I'm bringing out right next to Office. And you'll see Company Project Template. Give it a click. Click Create. And look at that. That's pretty cool. And now it's just called Project 1. They can save it as whatever they want. And that template will always be there. So that's how you can create templates for other people in your company. And yeah, it's a pretty awesome feature. It allows them to now just put in the info and you did all the work for them. One of the last things we're going to talk about in this course is being able to affect admin options. This is something that's important, especially if you have different work weeks or different hours that the company works. Let's go over to File, and in the File tab, we're going to go to the Options right down here and give that a click. I'll open it back to that main interface, but now you'll have your project options. They do have all your options, and they're all in categories. Your general options will see how you want to start your project view. You'll notice this one did come with a timeline. If you really don't like that timeline, you never use it, you always hide it, then just click the drop down and choose to do a Gantt chart without the timeline. You can pick what your default view is right away. So when you open up a new file, it only starts with the Gantt chart and you don't have to worry about seeing the timeline. You can also choose your gate formats as well, who the user's initials are. And of course, you can do some really cool background and themes. These aren't really something I use anymore just because of the new update. They don't access them. See here, you don't see the clouds at all anyway. You can go into your display, choose what symbols you use for currency. So if you're working on a project that uses a different currency, you don't have to use just the US dollar. You can use any. You can also change Gregorian, or you could do a Thai Buddhist calendar, whatever is making sense for this project. Schedule as well for this project. You can choose when the week starts, the fiscal year, default start times, end times, and hours per day, hours per week, and also days per month. So this is something that comes really in handy, especially if you're with a company that doesn't just do traditional business hours. You can quickly change this. And they have all sorts of different options you can go through and see, durations are entered in days by default. If you're no, I'm constantly using hours, then just choose hours instead. For proofing, this is just for autocorrect options. You can see fields to check like name, task, notes, tasks, and when they will correct boot. Your saving options, where it's going to save the default file location, language if you want to choose a different language as well, and then some advanced options too, like Planning Wizard. I really like that. You have prompt for project info for new projects. And you can scroll down and see all the different types, how you display the options. So if you're like, how do I do years? Oh, YR. How do I do months? If you want to do mon, right? You can look the drop down. There's so many different ones. And then we have customize the ribbon. If you want to add different custom ribbon tools, I had my own Joe's tools that I've created, or even affect the quick access toolbar, what goes up here. Add-ins, if that's something you use, or even the trust center. So those are the different options. You could take a moment to try those out on your own, see what makes sense. And they're pretty straightforward, like I said, so nothing too cryptic. And then once you're done, click OK, and you're all set.